Hey there, it's Chad here, and just want to welcome you into another episode of A Level Deeper, the show where we really just get to the heart of it, you know? We go deep, fast, as we try to understand and uncover this human condition that we all exist within. Today, I'm excited to share my conversation with you that I had with my guest, Steffani Traskos. And Steffani makes up the other half of the Nakee Butter equation. And if you're wondering, what's Nakee Butter? Well, that's the thing that Evan Weber and I talked about last week, the company that he founded. Steffani joined Evan in the business early on and saw something that really intrigued her, something that she wanted to be a part of. So in this conversation, Steffani walks us back into that journey of how she first met Evan and at what stage in her life she was in when this opportunity came around. And one thing that stood out to me is that this opportunity was not handed to Steffani. She identified it, she went for it, she asked for it, and she made it happen. I also loved when Steffani used this metaphor of thinking of her life as a movie, and you'll have to listen to how she describes what that means to her and how she goes about making decisions based on creating the most interesting movie possible. I always enjoy any time I can catch up with a fellow entrepreneur and share some of the ups and downs, wins and losses along the way. And Steffani does a great job of being vulnerable and sharing what it's really like on this journey. So I trust that you'll enjoy it. Here's my conversation with Steffani Traskos. I want to start with, tell me about your hat.
So this hat says mind over matter. We always joke around whenever I wear this, though. We always say, oh, remember, matter under mind. But but it's mind over matter. And when I saw it, I was immediately gravitated toward it because I love the message. I strongly and firmly believe that we have the power to, experience neuroplasticity and to change how we think and therefore change our reality. So I am a firm believer. Sometimes Evan will say I'm living in la la land, but I'm like, no, we do have magic and it's just in between our ears and we just have to figure out how to use it. So,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
How often do you sort of return to that? Like, how does that show up in some of your everyday life where you're trying to apply this idea of mind over matter? What does that look like for you day to day?
Day to day, it looks like adjusting my attitude and just recognizing that there are things that are outside of my control. Most things are outside of my control. All that's really in control, that I'm in control of, is my mindset. And so whenever I'm faced with adversity or, struggle as a small business owner, as a human, it, just comes up as a reminder to recognize that we have the power to shift our attitude towards whatever we're facing. So in business, it's exercising a lot of patience. In life, it's also exercising a lot of patience, a lot of grace for self and for others. So yeah, it shows up as a daily practice to just recognize that we have more power often than we give ourselves credit for.
So I often love chatting with people who intentionally choose to do difficult things in life. As you kind of alluded to there, like being a human and the human existence is at times challenging enough as it is. And so it's always interesting to me then when people go add additional layers on to maybe seemingly make this human experience even more challenging, more difficult. For you, especially in recent months, you've been on social media, on the Nakee Butter accounts, talking about some of the difficulties and some of the challenges and struggles of running and owning and operating a small business. Before we get into some of the story and some of the more specific experience of what that has been like, I'm just curious about, like, why do you choose and continue to choose this very difficult path?
I like to think of my life as a movie. And when I think about it as such, or if I think about it as if I have an audience, it's like, what is the interesting story? What is the one that's going to be captivating? What's the one that I want to read or I want to watch, I want to listen to? And it's not to say every lifestyle is great for every person, but when I think of my movie and I see myself just clocking in, clocking out, going home, scrolling on social media, going to bed, waking up, doing the next, like, that's a boring movie. That movie sucks. So I like the peaks and valleys that exist in the small business world. It is challenging. And I love the push to have to be an autodidact. You know, you have to teach yourself how to do this because no one's going to hold your hand. And for some reason, I'm fearful of that responsibility, but I also thrive under pressure. So especially when I'm putting myself under that pressure, and that's why I choose to continue to do this because it's exciting to me. Because it's despite how god awful it could be at times. You know, it's like sometimes we do look at ourselves and we're like, what the hell are we doing? You know, it'd be so much easier sometimes to just take the alternative route. But again, it's like that story, boo, you know.
Okay, tell me more about your perspective on like what is the fulfilling part of it? What is the upside of it? So like we know that it's incredibly challenging. You've talked about how okay, you're not necessarily interested in some of the alternative paths that you know that you could take. So what's the upside of it? Why why do you keep coming back into this difficult thing? What is it bringing to your life that's valuable?
So for me, especially in this business where we're providing a good that we're so passionate about, getting to share the message of nutrition, of community, of small business, of struggle, of being able to relate to customers and customers who become friends, who've become a part of our community. You know, it feels really gratifying to be able to help people, to inspire others, to connect to one another, and then to subsequently become connected. You know, it's like they say you're the product of the people that you surround yourself with. So in this world, you get to meet so many interesting, awesome, go-getter people. And it's like when you want to be that and you surround yourself with those people, that's what I get out of it. And it's like then even in the nature of our product, the customers that we have, these are awesome people. Like these are people that are challenging themselves, that are stepping out of their comfort zones, that are going and living the dream or trying to find time to do it by midnighting, you know, or moonlighting. And yeah, so I love to connect with the people. I also love the freedom of it because ultimately, you know, I get to choose. Of course, we hold ourselves to standards and we're responsible and, you know, we work within, you know, banker's hours, of course, but we get to experience that freedom that you might not get with a traditional job.
I hadn't really thought about the benefit of like from a sort of networking or community standpoint. You know, your kind of target audience is like high performance people. And what a cool customer base to have where like the people who are using your products, enjoying your products, people that you are interacting with are people who are out doing all sorts of really cool things, whether they're in the business world or they're in the adventure world. I hadn't thought about it from that angle of like what a cool way to attract the type of person that you want to be around by having this product that is geared towards that person.
I'm constantly inspired by our audience, by our customers, by our clients, by our friends that we gain in this world. I'm constantly in inspiration mode due to the people that I'm around. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
Yeah, was there or is there like intention around, that being the customer base? Of course, like at some point there's just kind of like a product market fit that exists. Was there intentionality behind, well, we want it to be geared towards this type of person because this is who we want in our ecosystem? Was there intentionality behind that?
So when Evan initially created the product, he was in like full bodybuilder mode. So he was thinking from the perspective of an athlete. So it was born of that, of tending to athletic needs in the nutrition space because there wasn't a lot of functional food being infused into protein, shakes and stuff like this. Like MCT oil was barely on the map. Like it was a different time. It feels weird to say it, but now it's like we're 9 years in. So it was. So it's really cool to see it all changing now. Like the landscape is incredibly inspiring. We see it all around us too. We're like, wow, other people are doing this now, so this must be pretty cool. So, but it ultimately has really shaped into something beyond just catering to athletes. Like it's utilized by, that's it's interesting when we do market research and we recognize the vast, spectrum of demographics, psychographics that all of our consumers, you know, the variances. And so it was intended, and it is intended to cater to that kind of audience, but it has morphed into something so much more than that, which is cool. But yeah, but you could still skydive with it, and you could still take it up a mountain, and that's kind of where it was born from.
If you're listening to this and you've listened to my conversation with Evan, I don't think in our actual conversation we talked about the skydiving thing, because my wife Eileen and I went skydiving in Moab, and it was a direct result of the fact that you and Evan went skydiving in Moab, I think a few months before us, and we were traveling in Moab. I think Eileen had posted maybe on our Instagram like, "Hey, we're in the Moab area. What should we do?" And it was probably you who messaged and was like, "You should go skydiving," and that was just like a light bulb of like, oh wow, yeah, I've always wanted to do this. We should go do that. And we did it, and it was the most incredible, unbelievable experience that I've had in my life. So I want to say thank you for that, because I think you might have directly made that happen.
I do remember messaging Eileen and telling her and sending her the link to the skydiving space that we went to. Yeah, so that's incredible. I'm so glad that you guys went, and I remember being so excited when I was messaging her, because not only is it a life-changing experience wherever you go, but that particular place to skydive over Moab, which feels so magical and ancient and just badass, and to be able to see it from that vantage point, doing something so exhilarating, it's almost like so much energy is created from that kind of experience. So I'm so glad that you guys went and did that. That's awesome.
It was just one of those incredible moments, experiences in life where, it's like you I don't know, I found myself walking away from it, and I was like, yes, of course that was just like a thrilling experience, but it also just took me back to, I don't know, I assigned some deeper meaning to those things of like, wow, look at, from a fear perspective, and like, look at what we're capable of and capable of overcoming, and all of the things that, it brought this kind of like limitless sort of feeling of like, I mean, I can fall out of an airplane, and I have someone's help with me, of course, but I can free fall towards the earth and overcome those fears. I don't know. I took so much from that experience beyond just the thrill of it, that it was really, really meaningful. Did it kind of feel similar for you? I guess, was that your first time doing it?
Yes, it was my first time, and it will not be my last. Like, I cannot wait to do it again. As soon as we touched the ground, I wanted to go back up and do it again. I will say,
so did I.
I'm a big thrill seeker in general. I love heights. I love the danger. I get really excited for all that kind of stuff. Big thrill seeker, but like you said, it's a huge challenge in overcoming fear and pushing past those mental barriers. And so it's an extremely cathartic experience. It's like, well, if I can jump out of a plane, I can present to this group of people, or I could do this. I can make this deal. I can take the first step to living the life that I want out on the road, or do this business. It's like you can kind of do anything that's what I was talking about with the mind over matter thing. It's like we can push ourselves. And so I resonate with that completely. I felt the same thing, and I can't wait to do it again.
Agreed. I'm looking for my next opportunity. Okay, so using this movie analogy of the movie of your life, let's let's rewind the movie a little bit. I'm curious about Steffani pre Nakee Butter, and I want to hear the story of how that came to be. But were you always down this sort of entrepreneurial journey, or this journey of wanting to maybe do things differently and have this freedom? Like, how did this whole thing come to be?
So before, pre Nakee, I was a college student at Wayne State, and before that, I went to a community college in my city, Dearborn Heights, or Dearborn. And I didn't really know, like growing up, I didn't have a fully solid idea of like what I wanted to do or be. I always felt inspired by being an academic. I thrived with that, like that pressure, and I loved like going for the gold and getting the National Honor Society, all the like I prided myself on it. And I thought I was at, when I was rounding out my high school and college career, I was thinking about becoming a professor. Like I wanted to go to school to learn how to teach, because so many of my teachers had such a profound impact on my life and who I became. And it just felt like a way to give back. And I always wanted to connect because I loved that connection. And when so many of my peers didn't enjoy being in class, I was always like, hand up, like I want to have a conversation. I want to talk about these things. I love to learn, and I love to share what I've learned and have these like colloquial conversations. So I always thought that maybe that would be the route that I would go and stay in academia. And then it kind of started to get a little more like, okay, reality is setting in. Like this costs a lot of money to go to school, to go to get my master's and PhD and so on. And I was serving at the time, serving in the bartending scene and all in Royal Oak, and or I don't, you are from Michigan, so you know the
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. So I was paying my way through college by serving. So I was working nonstop, going to school full time, doing the honors thing. So it's like extra credit hours, extra responsibilities, community service, all the things. And I kind of just had that call to like, whew, you need to like slow it down, because I was kind of burning myself out. And toward the end of my college career, I was starting to think about, okay, well, I want to connect with people, but I need to make more money, and I can't spend too much money going to school. So I need to figure this out, figure out this sweet spot. So I landed on public relations because I love to talk and I love to communicate. I loved that idea of communicating messages. And
Okay, I have a good question before
yeah.
we go into PR. What was it like having this vision to go into academia and wanting to maybe become a professor, and then, as you said, coming to maybe some of the realization that that path was going to be really expensive, it was going to be long. How did that feel at that time in your life to have that vision, that thing that it sounded like you were aspiring to maybe feel like that wasn't attainable and you had to do something else? Was that a difficult process for you to go through?
It was kind of, it just felt like I had a bunch of different things floating around, and that was like the shiniest one. I felt like I could do anything, and I also felt like no pressure to make any decision. Like I when I was in my early 20s, I'm like, I've got all the time in the world. What do you mean? And I did, and I still do, and that's what I've come to recognize now. But I was in no rush, so it didn't really feel too like crushing in any way. Like it didn't feel like painful in any way to steer a path differently. I also, when I was serving, I started to recognize that I loved like hospitality, and I loved when I was learning about the relationship between marketing and getting into like how does that all work. And so I started learning about that throughout my serving and bartending positions, just through communication, through working with the managers and stuff. So I started to kind of get a little bit intrigued when it came to the PR world. So it didn't feel like a settling, but I always do wonder sometimes though, like what would have been, what would it have been like? But here we are now. So, and I'm happy where I'm at now. So,
Okay, so pushing play again. You pursue the PR world. What happens next?
so I'm at Wayne State. I'm finishing my undergrad for public relations. I'm working in the bar scene, nightclub scene, and I met Evan. We worked together at a nightclub. I was a bottle service waitress, and he was a security guard, and we kind of just became fast friends because we were very like-minded. We goofed around a lot. We just kind of got along really easily, really well. And I was in school for PR at the time, and he was just starting to come out with this idea of this, what is this business? I'm starting this thing. And I asked him if I could help out in any way. And it became kind of volunteering at first, but then it turned into more of a solid position. But I remember when I was in school, I got to go back and use these real life examples from this real small business that I was working with, this real Detroit brand new business, whereas everybody else was using, oh, this example from the book. And I just felt so, it just felt so cool, like I'm like 21, 22. I'm starting to work with a small business. I'm so sorry about that. I asked him one day, just, it felt like one of those moments that I can remember that conversation so vividly, feeling so like excited, but a little bit nervous to just go up to him and say, hey, I know you're doing this cool thing. And I know you know that I don't know what the hell I'm doing because I'm still in school and I'm trying to figure it out too. But I feel like I can help you. And he's like, honestly, I am a solo entrepreneur. I will take whatever help I can get. And I'm like, bet, let's do this thing. And I just remember starting to learn more about PR and marketing and getting to apply it to what we were doing with Nakee. And eventually it just turned into a career. Instead, it felt like an internship at first, like a impromptu kind of unofficial internship, but it turned into my career.
Walk us through that moment when you're having that conversation with Evan and you're going to go, kind of pitch yourself and say like, hey, I want to be a part of this thing. I mean, even thinking about it now in this moment, I'm like, it almost gives me a little bit of the kind of heebie-jeebies. I'm just like, oh, that's a lot, to go out and say, I want this thing. I think I can help you, and to see what the response is going to be. Take us more through what that was like for you. Is that something you had done before in your life where you were sort of betting on yourself and saying, I want this thing. I want this to happen?
I think it probably was one of the first times where I was going after something unapologetically and just going straight for it. Everything else almost felt like throughout my life up until that point, it was like, here's this opportunity. Do you want it? Yes or no? Whereas this one was not necessarily on the table. He wasn't thinking of it. He was trying to figure out how to start a company. But I saw the opportunity, and it felt so aligned, and it was one of those moments where, yes, I was super nervous, but it was excitement now that I look back on it. And now I can recognize that was true alignment, because it's either, an F yes or an F no, so, and in that moment it was a yes. So it was just it was an incredibly impactful moment. And the way that he kind of lit up after that was like, oh, like the business and the idea was attracting another person, more ideas and more energy behind it. And I felt confident in my skill set too. Even though I kind of didn't know exactly what I was doing, I knew that I could figure it out. And that only continued because Evan had confidence in me, and I continued to prove myself as I got started with working with Nakee. So it was definitely a memorable, life-changing moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a good reminder for me. It's a good reminder for anyone listening. As far as I think I struggle to really speak into existence the things that I want to happen. So I tend to, maybe it's sometimes a lack of self-belief, or it feels hard. It feels vulnerable to be able to say I want this thing, and to especially to present that to someone else, and unsure of how they're going to view me, how they're going to view what I'm asking for or wanting. That feels like a powerful reminder, as far as sometimes the only thing that's getting in the way of us creating a reality or something that we want, mind over matter, is us just asking for it and speaking it into existence. Is it sometimes really that simple?
It really is. I firmly and strongly believe in energetics, and in what we put out is what we receive. And so in doing so, in taking that chance, whatever it might be, in asking, just saying, hey, the worst that thing can happen is, they say no, or not right now, or laugh in your face, whatever. But even still, it's like that can't do anything. If you're firm in how you feel about yourself, then it's like, then you can't be shaken by rejection. So my relationship with rejection has become a really healthy relationship. And so that's why there's this kind of fearlessness with taking a chance, because I'm like, well, what are they going to say? They're either going to say yes, and that's awesome, or they're going to say no, and I say, okay, cool. What's the next thing I can do? What's the next opportunity?
Is it an exposure thing? Is that how you build this sort of positive relationship to, failure or rejection specifically? Is it just exposure?
I would say that it is definitely exposure. It's if you've ever given out free samples to people and just been told, no, 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 ew, I don't like it. I don't like it. Or just whatever. Or just asking people, hey, how are you doing? And just get totally shafted. It's like, all right, have a good day. That kind of exposure comes from Eastern Market. It comes from the trade shows. But it also comes from pitching stores and from pitching clients and customers. It's just like, it's remembering that, no matter how many times that people say no, that someone's going to say yes. And if at least one person says yes, then it's like, okay, then I can make that connection, and that feels good, and that will grow into something bigger.
I know what's probably happening right now. You just heard the ad music play. You're starting to tune out exactly what I'm saying, so you can skip this ad and get back to the conversation, and I'm going to encourage you not to. Because if you continue to skip this ad in order to get back to the conversation, then at some point there may not be a conversation for you to get back to. Okay, now that I have your attention, that might have been a little bit exaggerated. Likely, I'm not going to stop producing this show, but you can help me make this show a lot more viable, and so I can continue doing this into the future. Fun fact, I don't make any money from this show. In fact, I actually pay in order to create these episodes on a weekly basis. And while that may not exactly seem like your problem or your issue, if you like meaningful conversations like the ones that we have here, well, then it is your problem. I could use your help in the form of financial support specifically in order to keep this show going and continually invest back into creating it. Here's another fun fact. If everyone listening to this episode were to donate the single cost of a cup of coffee, I could probably do this as a full-time job. That is a dream and a vision I have for myself one day, and I want this to be like PBS or NPR, where it's funded by the viewers. I'm imagining a show where we, together, collectively, decide that these meaningful conversations are important to us, and we don't rely on outside help or advertisers in order to keep them coming on a weekly basis. So yes, this is a long-winded way of saying I'm asking you for money. If you're in a place where you feel comfortable doing so, I am asking you to make a small donation to support the show. You can do that by following the link that is in the show notes of this episode to a place called Buy Me a Coffee. Now, by buying me a coffee through this platform, you're not actually buying me a coffee. It's just kind of a mental construct to make this transaction of money a little bit more tangible. Thank you in advance for considering supporting me, supporting the show, and for supporting meaningful conversations like the one we're about to get back to right now. Do you ever have a difficult time separating some of your own identity from, kind of the identity of the product and the business itself? Like, I'm imagining in these moments where I'm picturing you at Eastern Market, just trying to engage people and maybe offer free samples, and someone saying no, or if someone doesn't like the product or whatever, is it ever difficult to sort of separate yourself and your own identity, as far as like, they're not necessarily saying no to Steffani the human, they're saying no to, I don't want this product, or I don't like this product, but does that ever become kind of cloudy or difficult?
It has at times, but that is something that I've worked on personally, to compartmentalize, recognizing and this is something I remind my business partner of often, is that we are not the business. The business now has become its own entity, and we are part of it, but we are not it. So, the same way with any kind of like role or any kind of thing that we play in life. It's like I am not my job. I am not my who I am to my family or my friends. It's like I am who I am, no matter what. So, for me, it it has become a lot easier to compartmentalize, but there are times, where it does kind of hurt when it feels like maybe on an individual basis when it comes to like sampling and stuff, it's like, okay, that's no sweat. But when it comes down to pitching a large store, for example, or pitching a large client, and we pour our whole heart and soul into whatever it is, the presentation, the pitch, the competition, the grant, whatever it is, and we pour everything that we have into it, and then it's still kibosh. It's like that is when it kind of stings a bit, because we do pour so much of ourselves into what we do. So I think as a brand, it becomes like when it's the brand that's kind of shafted opposed to the individual product. It's like, okay, I understand that everybody's got their own tastes. I don't like this and you don't like that, or I love this and you hate that. That's fine. But when it comes to, hey, this is who we are as a company, these are our values, this is our mission, this is what we want to do, and then that gets rejected, then it's like, well, that is us, you know? Like, shit. Pardon me.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, well, and I imagine, in those moments, it's difficult to again just sort of separate from an identity standpoint. Yes, are they saying no to you and the brand? But it's also like it doesn't mean that there's something that's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the brand. There could be a million other things that are going on in those moments as to why it's just not a good fit or it's not the right time. But I get it. Those are really challenging moments to overcome, and then sort of pick yourself back up and go do it again.
Yeah. It does feel kind of crazy sometimes. It does.
Somewhere in the conversation, you mentioned the word passion, and that's always a word that I'm really curious about, especially, passion as it relates to our work or our careers or jobs. You mentioned it's I think you said kind of, the business is something that you're passionate about, or the product is something that you're passionate about. What role does passion play in this whole thing? Was that something that was, kind of present in the beginning where you were passionate about the product or, the category and you wanted to pursue it? Or has passion been something that maybe has been developed over time through some of the experience? How do you look at passion?
That's a good question. I felt passionate about the idea of doing something different and something that could be molded. I'll be honest, I didn't like Nakee Butter the first time I tried it. It was not the formula that it is today. Okay. I will tell you that. It was a lot different. It wasn't tweaked quite right, because I remember the flavor was good, but like I remember the texture. I was just like, this is drier than the desert. I could not imagine having this like after work. And eventually, it became, but I loved the idea of doing something different and new. And I could feel the passion that, Evan had about the product. And for me now, I'm so grateful when I receive the compliment, I can tell you're passionate about your business. To me, that feels so good when I'm smiling and I'm engaged and I'm talking about it. It is the category. It is the nutrition. I love to help people see ways that our product can play into their lives by, you don't have to sacrifice. It can taste good and be good for you. And so that's kind of one of the myths that we'd like to bust with our product. But I think the passion comes with the whole lifestyle of the brand, like, because that is where I feel the most passion, is like the community, the small business, the craziness of it, the thrill seekers, the athleticism, all of it feels so in alignment and in tune with who I am as a person. And I do feel like I'm a naturally emphatic and passionate person. Like I've got a lot of energy and it kind of just spills out uh, into everything, which I'm really grateful for. But it can be a lot sometimes. I'm like, whew, all right, Steph, chill. But, again, what movie do I want to watch? Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question or if I kind of just danced around it. But I feel a lot of passion about what I do. I feel passionate pretty much with everything I do. And if I don't feel passionate about it, then I know there's a problem.
Tell me more.
If it becomes like a drain and an energy suck, and I'm not like, and that's a tough world to play in. Oh, if it doesn't bring me so much joy, it's like a Marie Kondo thing. It's like if it doesn't spark joy, then throw it away. It's like, well, you can't do that in business. You can't say, oh, well, invoicing sucks, so I'm not going to do it. It's like, well, you kind of have to do these things. So for me, it's when passion starts to lack in whatever task or thing that is necessary to do. I like to gamify things. And so if I think about it like a game, like, okay, well, how fast can I get this done? Or how much can I get done in an hour? That helps me to kind of reignite passion. I feel a lot of strength when it comes to, and this might sound silly or odd, but like seeing things through like a childlike perspective where it's like, okay, well, how can I have fun with this? Let's figure that out. That helps me to feel more productive and more passionate about what I'm doing, even when it feels monotonous.
So it seems like there's something kind of deeper than to this passion that you're describing. Like it's not just for the product or just for the category. It's also for some of the lifestyle and some of the freedom and some of the like pride that you're putting towards this thing. It seems like all of those things maybe are ingredients that are making up this passion because as you said, there's moments where it's really hard. And so if you're just kind of basing it off of like joy or enjoyment, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's times being a small business owner where I just don't really enjoy it. That doesn't mean that I don't have like a deep love and appreciation, maybe, those similar ingredients of passion that are there. But does that kind of feel like it fits that the passion is sort of this deeper thing for maybe the whole experience of all of it?
Yeah, it's almost like that fire that keeps it going. It's like the embers, they keep the fire going. It goes deeper than the day-to-day emotion. Because you're right. There are days where it's like, I don't want to do this. Like there are days where sometimes I just want someone just to tell me what to do, punch in, punch out, go home, sit on social, it's like there are days where that sounds great. But that is not the life that I've chosen. But it is that it's like an underlying thing that keeps the whole machine going, keeps the whole system going.
You talked about this idea of like embers and that are, ignited and still hot. What would be a sign that like those embers have gone out? Obviously to this point they haven't. You're still here, you're still in this journey, especially with Nakee Butter. Do you have an idea of like what it would mean for that passion to be gone or for those embers to go out?
Yeah, no, I've been close to it. There have been times where I've personally struggled with depression, burnout, and so then burnout, when you can't take that retreat, when you can't, or I shouldn't say can't, because I always have that control, but when you choose not to, when you sacrifice self for the business, and then resentment can build towards, again, towards this entity. It's like that kind of funny like meme where it's like, oh, who's the one that's causing you all this anguish? You pull off the mask. Oh, it's me. It's it's tough when you're self-governed, but because you have no one to blame. You can't say, oh, my boss is working me to death. Like, oh, I'm doing it to myself.
Yeah.
So there have been times where that has gotten to be too much. And it definitely caused me to sink into kind of a darker, lower energy space, lower energetic space, to where I was like, you know what? Maybe it would just be easier to find something that's, maybe I can still find a way to help out with the business and do that and just have a regular job, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means anymore, because it seems like this space now there's so much opportunity in so many different areas. So, but regardless, it it's gotten to some dark places at times, but you're right. Thankfully, it has not extinguished entirely. But I think we've all kind of been there where it's like you feel like your back's up against the wall. It's like, what can I do to keep this going? I have no energy left in the reservoir. But in those moments, it's like finding ways to reignite it, finding like logs to throw back on it and like fan the flame a little bit. And usually that comes in the form of support from my business partner, from fellow entrepreneurs, from people in the space, from friends and family. So just to remind yourself, like, okay, you've come this far, so you can't come this far to only go this far.
Well, I've definitely been there myself. So yeah, I can resonate with this experience. I resonate a lot with you. Sort of stopped yourself when you said, I can't step away. I can't take a break. And then you said, well, I'm choosing not to. And that is something that I resonate with a lot, where I'll find myself feeling like I can't. I can't do things. I can't take a break. I can't step away. I need to. I have to. And that's a lot of the language that I'll use when I'm describing the things that I feel like I have to do. I must do. And then it's often my wife, Eileen, who will remind me, like, you've chosen to do all of these things and you can choose not to do them as well. Like, who is making you do any of this? And it's just kind of that moment of like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. Like, this is all a choice. That's usually a huge mindset shift for me that helps me recenter when I'm in these times where, like, if I'm feeling really heavy, my energy is not good, if I'm not enjoying the whole process of why I wanted to go down this path in the first place, it's often revisiting it. I chose to be here. I chose to do this. Why am I choosing to not make choices that are going to make this whole situation better? So I totally get that.
Yeah, it's a choice of now balancing, choosing balance, choosing ways to figure out how can I avoid this. If I've chosen, whether directly or indirectly, chosen burnout before, how can I make better choices? We hear it all throughout our entire lives. Make better choices, make good choices. It's like, all right, time to make some good choices. And, it's taking time to have those moments of self-care. For myself, it's, yoga, it's exercise. I love going for walks. I love listening to like novels and just like zoning out. It's like, what do you like to do to self-care?
Yeah. Time outside, time walking is usually big for me. Time to just step out of the day-to-day schedule. I run my own business, and yet there are many times where I treat it like I have a 9 to 5 and I have someone watching over me, expecting me to be working from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. And like, even if I'm not feeling productive or if there's work to be done, I'll just like make myself sit at my computer and do work between those hours. So a lot of times it's stepping out of that expectation that I put onto myself because no one else is really putting it onto me, and thinking about, what do I actually need in this moment? Like, sitting and just powering through another few hours of work doesn't seem like it's serving me. So what do I need? And that's usually, time to sit and read a book, time to just set up a chair outside and just relax, go for a walk, listen to a podcast, listen to some music. It's often making an intentional choice to get out of this made up structure that I've applied to my life that I am trying to escape from.
It is funny. Again, it's the call's coming from inside the house. It's us doing this. You remind me that it is important to recognize, like, oh, right, we have the power to take the break. Why are we assuming that someone's over our shoulder? It's like we're, as entrepreneurs, it's like we're in control, and it's such a beautiful thing. It's a blessing and a curse at times. It's like I said before, sometimes, you just want someone to say, here, do this, and once it's done, you're good.
I feel
And
that,
then
yeah.
but that's not the reality. It's here's these myriad things that you can do. Now manage your time. And I love what you said about, is it serving me right now to just power through, or would it serve me better to take a break, take a mental break, take a physical break? That's something I've been leaning into lately, is just, am I operating at my best right now? Or is my mind somewhere else? Am I dog ass tired and I'm trying just to get through? It's like, I'm not doing my best work. So maybe let me put a pause on it and get back to it. And that's the beauty of the freedom of being a small business owner. But I feel like we don't often exercise that freedom enough. It's funny, like you said, we just fall into these hours and they just become the routine, when that was the whole reason why we became small business owners in the first place.
Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Where's Alanis Morissette?
I have a mentor. His name's Alan Whitman, and he'll talk about this idea of slowing down to speed up, and that is something that I've been trying to apply more to my life. And like, I think I apply it to this topic or this situation like we're talking about, with the thinking that by slowing down and like just taking an hour or a couple hours or just taking the afternoon off, I'm slowing down. Yes, I'm not pushing forward. I'm not going as fast. I'm not as productive today in this moment. In the long run, though, I do believe that is going to be beneficial for me. By slowing down in this moment, I can speed up in the long run because I'm less likely to get burnt out. I'm less likely to go through, experiences of depression, in experiences where, I work myself into these places where like I just can't even function on a day-to-day basis. So I think about this idea of slowing down to speed up. Feels like it applies here.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the choices that you have made is to share openly or publicly on social media about some of the struggles and some of the challenges that all of you are going through as small business owners and operators. I'm curious about that because as a fellow entrepreneur, fellow small business owner, sometimes I can find myself feeling like it already feels like I have all these cards stacked against me. It already feels like, whether it's in reality or made up, people are kind of questioning what I'm doing. And so it can feel like I need to present all of these wins and all of these successes to try to like prove myself to people. You've made a very conscious choice to share a lot of the difficulties and the things that are going on behind the scenes. Why has that felt important? And what has some of that experience been like for you?
So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I love about being in small business is getting to communicate and feel like that communication channel is open. So I know that my message is touching people because I can see it through analytics. It's like which feels kind of weird, but it is a great tool when you use it the right way. And we share the wins. We still try to follow that formula of, especially when selling a product. It's like you've got to convey why you should do this. But what I love about this freedom of being a small business owner is, well, I can talk about whatever the hell I want. Ultimately, same thing with a personal platform, but the audience is a little bit greater and they're a little bit more in tune here. So what I love is to be able to express vulnerability, because I find so much strength in vulnerability. Because in those vulnerable moments, you ask for help. You get the help that you need. You don't say, oh, I can handle this all myself. I've been there before. That didn't work. That we all know doesn't work. Okay, but we get in this mindset of, I've got to figure this out myself. I don't need to We just need to, the wins, the wins, the wins, the positive, the highlight reel. And while I do feel like, and I'm so grateful for it, that a lot of our lives do exist on the highlight reel. We do have a lot of fun. We have a blast, and we have awesome people that to work with, and that our customers, our product. But sharing the hardships and the pitfalls just feels like a way to give others permission to share how they feel too, and to recognize like, oh, I'm not alone. I also find struggle in that. I also have breakdowns. I want to express that, so that there's two sides to every coin. It's not just all of this. There's a lot. There's honestly, it feels like the tip of the iceberg, what is on social media, and then the rest of it, it's like there's struggles every single day. And I think making that choice to share those helps other people to feel that vulnerability, and feel the strength and vulnerability, and ask for help too. We've had people want to talk now after sharing some of these things. We've had people private message us, oh, how did you get through this? What did you end up doing? And then we get to share then advice, and it kind of positions us for what we eventually want to do with the business, and as individuals, is to pursue maybe like a coaching or like a mentorship or some kind of system like that, where we could help people on a more structured platform.
I can tell you that as someone who has seen you on Instagram, you all on social media sharing like, hey, this happened, and this is hard, and this is difficult. It does. I mean, it, as a viewer and someone who can really directly relate to it, I'm like, oh wow, okay, I'm not the only person who's going through experiences like this. I'm not alone. There are other people, and if they're figuring out how to navigate it, then I think I can too. So as someone who sees it, I guess just another testimony of like, I hope that you continue to share in that way, because it really is a powerful thing. And I think it has a lot of power to unite people and bring them together in a lot of opportunity for good. So keep doing it.
Thank you very much for saying that. That really means a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's fun, and it's one of the reasons I just enjoy these conversations, is to be able to just go deeper into experiences like this. And it's a reminder for me that I'm not alone. It's a reminder for someone who's listening to this conversation who might be going through something similar, or might have taken something from something you've shared today and reminded them that they're not alone, and that like these experiences and these feelings and these emotions that we go through as humans are really a lot more universal than I believe we think they are at times. And there's likely someone else out there who is going through whatever you might be going through in this moment. And so this feels like another powerful example and reminder for me. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being willing to share some of those experiences, both on this platform, on the platforms that you have. Thank you for being one of those voices. I think it's really important.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to do so, and I feel grateful to have a voice to share, and have a platform to share on, and to have these different modes of communication, to get to share the story and share the inspiration, and create more of a community and more collaboration, more vulnerability. It's an honor.
Steffani, if people wanted to find you, get in contact with you, follow you, and follow Nakee Butter and the journey and the story that's unfolding there, what would be the best places for them to do that?
I would say definitely give us a follow to check out these videos of vulnerability, and also the highlight reels, the fun stuff too. I would check out our Instagram account at Nakee Butter, and we also have a TikTok where it's a little bit more lawless over on TikTok, but it is fun, and we're having fun with it. So check us out on Nakee Butter. It's Nakee Butter across all social media platforms. So that's where you can find me. That's where you can find us. Yeah.
I will attest to, you were talking about some of the earlier versions of the product. The latest versions of the product
of Nakee Butter are delicious. They are smooth. They are not dry. They're very good tasting. So highly recommend checking them out. I've enjoyed any time I've had, any experience I've had to have a package of Nakee Butter. It's been very, very good. So I will attest to lots of improvements have been made to some of those maybe initial prototypes.
Oh yeah, it's so smooth. It's like the cacao peanut butter is my ultimate favorite. It's like just like a brownie batter, delicious. I can't get enough. So there is another place where you can find us is on our website, nakee.co is where you can get Nakee.
Awesome. Steffani, thanks again for investing time with me, and thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been such a great time, great conversation, and I'm grateful for the experience.
Hey, my friend, just want to say thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, the thing you could do to help me grow the show the most is share it with someone. If you took something in particular from this conversation, well, maybe someone in your life would enjoy listening to it as well. That's my request for this week. Thank you again for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for contributing to meaningful conversations like the ones that we have here. And I'll see you next week.